We were hunters and foragers. The frontier was everywhere. We were bounded only by the earth and the ocean and the sky. The open road still softly calls. Our little terraqueous globe is the madhouse of those 100,000 millions of worlds. We who cannot even put our own planetary home in order, riven with rivalries and hatreds, are we to venture out into space?
Carl Sagan has touched many of us with his wild and beautiful words of the final frontier. Most of us have been raised in a world where the promise of space exploration loomed just before our own eyes. The moon, Mars, Saturn, and further into the great expanse is where our species must go for long-term survival. And in order to do that, we must think not as cities, nations, or empires, but as a species, a single organism. Once again, from the brilliant mind of Sagan, an organism at war with itself is doomed. But what can we do? Not all of us are astronomers, astrophysicists, engineers. Many of us were never given the means to seek a higher education. Some of us were impoverished, sick, starving, or just not cut out for the work that space exploration entails. So how do we help humanity towards its inevitable destiny among the stars? I often find that art expression is one of the most powerful tools at our disposal, an exploration of the mind rather than the body. From Star Trek to Star Wars, from Wing Commander to No Man's Sky, no one can deny that the increasingly rapid movement of ideas has had an enormous impact on how we see the final frontier and how important the final frontier is to everybody else. Cosmos, the recently rebooted series narrated by Neil deGrasse Tyson, has no doubt left an impact on our cultural awareness of science. Now, more than ever, people are calling for an investment in the future of our species. A moment ago I asked you, what can we do? And I honestly believe that the answer is very simple. Think, create, and inspire. Many of us agnostics and atheists have often looked at the world and seen a bleak horizon. We see ignorance and bloodshed and all the horrible things that spell out doom for our survival. But are we really doomed? Don't get me wrong, things do look dark. They have for decades. But when we observe how many people in even semi-developed nations are getting involved with new technologies and new forms of art expression, it makes me believe that we are not beyond salvation. Practically every one of us is now able to create something and give it to the rest of us. If we can't all move towards space, then perhaps some of us can. You and I, the ones who live in the now, the ones who will likely never see space, we can inspire future generations to journey above. We can be the ones who dare to dream, who challenge our children and our grandchildren to make that leap. All it takes is what's up here. TJ has talked in the past about Christopher Nolan's upcoming film Interstellar, an odyssey through a recently discovered wormhole that would hopefully save humanity from extinction. Christopher Nolan himself has stated that the film is intended to encourage the goal of human spaceflight. Interstellar will be hitting theaters this November, and it will likely be seen by millions of people on opening weekend. And even if something happens and the film turns out to be lackluster, there is little doubt in my mind that it will inspire people to look above. On my channel, I've often said that video games are an emerging art form. Or they at least will be if they're not already. But how can they not be when so many people are affected by their influence ideologically? And that brings up the question, is interactive media kind of like the final frontier of art expression? Video games are the culmination of practically all audio and visual art forms made interactive. Typically, a video game not only conveys the ideas of its creator, but also stimulates the ideas of the player by allowing them to have a say in how the fantasy plays out. With that in mind, can video games inspire space exploration? I honestly believe so, and not just because I love video games, although that is also true. Earlier I mentioned No Man's Sky, an upcoming indie game with a procedurally generated open universe with the promise of diverse worlds and life forms. The game features planetary exploration, exotic fauna, deep oceans, and admittedly, a fair share of space combat. It is a video game after all, and we adrenaline junkies need some fun factor too, I'm just saying, you know. Another game I and many others are looking forward to is Destiny. And yeah, I know it's a shooter, and shooters tend to get a lot of flack from the hoity-toity artsy community. But in all honesty, this game sent familiar Space Odyssey shivers right down my spine. In fact, even Carl Sagan saw the potential of video games all the way back in the early 80s. In this personal document, Sagan mulled over the idea of creating a video game that could teach astronomy in, quote, a context as exciting as most violent video games. The premise involved creating a young galactic civilization in order to help it before it destroys itself. And so I will leave you with this challenge. If you value the final frontier, if you value and love our species, if you want to make a better place for all of us and the people we leave behind, go forth and create. Create passionately and create often. You can inspire. I believe in you. I'm the INVESTIGAMER. If you'd like to see more about the final frontier of art expression, video games, you can check out my channel, and feel free to subscribe. Until next time, peace.